Hello, everyone, and welcome to my talk. Here we are, Thursday, talking about a strategy for all seasons. That's chapter one, and it's beating the dough with bonds. I showed it to you the right side up last week, so um, I'm not gonna do it again because you know, you know how it is. Not good with this uh, videotaping yet. One day they're gonna be fun and cool to watch, but right now it's all informative for our um, gaining our grasp on our finances. But anyway, so this chapter was cool because it talks about what he did before, because he's a financial guru. Oh, his name is um, Michael B. O'Higgins. O'Higgins, I hope I pronounced it right. But that is the author of this book, Beating the Dough with Bonds. And he talks about, it was mostly about his previous book. In the 70s, he wrote a book about beating the dough with stocks, and he goes on to talk about his strategy there, which I think is a good one, and I think we should take notes and do that also. And he does say that our portfolio has to have, to have a good portfolio, it has to have some stocks, and then the bonds that are less risky and that will keep you going through the bad times, you know. Um, and so I will just read my notes that I took. Not all of it is in notes. Some of it I'm going to read from the book that I thought was interesting. But here we go. When everyone is betting on the hare, it is best to bet on the tortoise. So instead of going, where everybody's going, go the opposite direction. And that's the way he's been beating the dough. And so he goes on to say majority thinking is usually wrong for two reasons. One is consensus in the investing world develops after a trend has been in effect for a long time. And the longer such trend is in effect, the less likely it is to remain that way. So if you're jumping on the bandwagon, towards the end when everybody all made their money already, it's too late, because now it's going to be up here and then it's going to start its downtrend again, because that is how stocks usually go. And we talked about this last Thursday, right? And number two reason is usually when there is a widespread agreement on a particular investment's attractiveness, it means investors have acted on that opinion, causing the investment price to move dramatically in one direction. The more expensive an investment gets, the more difficult it's to make money and the riskier it becomes. So his theme, or what he does, is buy cheap and sell dear. I'm not sure what sell dear means, but it must be sell high, buy cheap, sell high. And then he goes on to talk about, and I'm already at the end, so I'm going to read the book a little now. But he says that there's the way he worked his stock, like how he went up or made some money with stock, is by following this rule, which it's not the rule here. I think I'm gonna read the rule over here in the book. But he says that there's 30 blue chip companies that make up the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and they're known as the Dow dogs. And then he says that Michael O'Higgins says, And making money, most of the time, there is nothing to do. And then he quotes Warren Buffett, which is one of the financial gurus. I before this book, I already knew or heard of Warren Buffett. Like, I don't even know what he looks like, but I know he's a rich guy that knows a lot of stuff in regards to investing. And so, Warren Buffett said, the greatest gain comes simply from watching your investments grow in value over time. And that is the end of my notes. But I'm going to give you, because I've told, like, no connoisseur in the investment information, but I do know from, what you hear in the news about, like, companies that if you were to buy stock here. And I always tell my girls, if ever you think you want to invest in something, invest in one of the big companies like Walt Disney. Those are the ones I always say, Pepsi, Coke, and then I talk about it. I don't know how to do it, but I know that that's, where you would want to go if you have stocks, since even before I started reading and thinking that that's something I want to do. But let me tell you the 30 industries that were, and some of the ones I mentioned, actually, oh no, there's two. Of the ones I mentioned are in this list. And I was so proud to see something I had thought before on the list. But this is the list that Mr. Michael O'Higgins had of the dough dogs, or these are companies that are so big that even in a recession they would do good, or not good, but in a recession their stock would fall, and that's where you want to buy. But they're so strong that once it starts picking up, it's gonna go up, because they're so strong that they will not fall and die. They, like Disney, will never, hopefully never die, because it's so strong, and it's a good company, right? So let me read you the companies that he had in his list. Allied Signal, Aluminum Company of America, American Express Company, AT&T Corporation, the Boeing Company, Caterpillar, Chevron Corporation, the Coca-Cola Company, E.I. DuPont, Eastman Kodak, Exxon Corporation, General Electric, General Motors, Goodyear Tires, Hewlett Packard, International Business Machine, International Paper Company, Johnson & Johnson, that's another one that I didn't mention but I had thought of, JP Morgan, McDonald's Corporation, Merck & Company, Minnesota Mining, Philip Morris, Procter & Gamble, Sears, Travelers Group, Union Carbide, United Technologies, Walmart, and the Walt Disney Company. And some of them I don't recognize, but a lot of them are still up at the top, and that's where we need to start if we were to buy stock, and buy it when it's cheap. That means when there's a recession or something, that is, save your little money, and when that comes, that's when you want to go and do that. Semi-American. Usually it's the problem caused by conditions beyond company control. That's not what I wanted to read. Oh, I wanted to read because he says he had like some steps that he takes and deciding, the stocks to buy. And one of them was that list of 30, and he says he buys the cheapest 5 of the list of the 10 cheapest ones. He buys 5 of the cheapest ones from the list of 30, that is. But he says those stocks that are as a group have outperformed the overall Dow average with unshakable consistency based on the following set of simple principles. This is how he chooses the stock he's going to buy. The key to investment success is knowing value. Buy cheap, sell dear. There's that dear again. Get paid in advance by buying undervalued assets. 2. By virtue of sheer size and strength, call it raw staying power, the 30 blue chip companies like General Electric and McDonald's that make up the Dow Jones Industrial Average tend to be survivors. The old adage, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, usually does not hold true when you're talking about corporate giants. Number 3, the investing public invariably overreacts to unfavorable developments such as crisis in the Middle East or strike by U.S. workers. This creates opportunities when you're dealing with blue chips. With them, bad news is usually good news because it makes stronger stock cheap, and that's when you want to buy. And number 4, recognize the tendency of less expensive stock to move in greater percentage increments than higher price shares. My strategy of using the 5 lowest priced of the DJIA, that's the Dow Jones Industrial Average, 10 highest yield stock, would identify those stocks whose prices are cheap relative to their current dividends. When held for 20 months period, those stocks would produce Dow beating total returns. And then he says, Beating the Dow, that was the name of his first book. Beating the Dow came out in October of 1990. So, there was something else I wanted to read. Oh, well, he talks about the chapters. He gave, it was a little introduction of, first he did Beating the Dow, so that was with stocks, and that what I just talked to you about is how he did, or how he chose stocks. But then he thought that a less risky way to invest would be the bonds, and that's when he came up with this book. And he goes on to say that part 1, chapter 1 through 4, and part 2, chapter 5 through 8 of the book explain the intricacies of the T-bond and the T-bill and stock markets, and the whys of moving your investment portfolio among all 3 to beat the Dow under all market conditions, which is what we want to learn, because we want to become knowledgeable and sophisticated, right? And then part 3, which is chapter 9 through 11, this book has 11 chapters, therefore 11 weeks of videos for this one. So part 3 pulls everything together to show you how and when to make your investment choices using my new Beating the Dow with T-bonds, T-bills, and stocks asset allocation system. So that is where we are, chapter 1. So next chapter is chapter 2, and it's gentlemen prefer bonds, and then it says gentlewomen do too. And we are the gentlewoman. Well, I am a gentlewoman, and that's what we're gonna read about in chapter 2. And I think this is a good choice. It has like good information, and I like the chapter 1 information, and I think we're gonna become knowledgeable and sophisticated. So if you want to learn more about beating the Dow with bonds, listen here, because I'm going to read all 11 chapters, and I'm going to give you the rundown in a little bit, so you don't have to read it. I will read it for you. see you next week.